Watch this.
Oh, hallelujah.
Get up right now.
Now that we've played Louis CK's new theme song, let's talk about Arena, specifically the premium catapults on the Greek side. Now, in theory, these guys are very powerful. You can protect them with your pikes. You can bring a slinger or an archer unit to scare away anything that gets a bit too close. So technically, you can fortify yourself in, and it's going to be hard for anyone to kill your units. There is one drawback to bringing the Greek catapults over the Roman ones, or should I say, the Greek catapults over the Caesar ones. And that is, they're very inaccurate. They're about as accurate as a blind man with cataracts. They can't hit shit. At least on most maps. There is a few maps that you can actually guess your accuracy pretty spot on, but they're few and far between. One of those maps is this one. The other map being Rubicon, where you don't need a Caesar buff to actually get some good shots in. So the only way to make these guys accurate is you have to convince someone to go Caesar, and you have to convince them to sit around where you are the whole fucking game, giving you those buffs. So thanks Badger Life for that. He had to play his Roman Caesar infantry, just so I could shoot something. So I would not say these guys are paid to win. They're paid to annoy someone else, making them go units they don't want to go. That's what these fucking units do. You have to say to someone, please man, can you go Caesar? I'm trying to make this fucking video, and these guys are so shit. I had one game where I shot for 15 minutes, and I might have hit 2 boulders the whole fucking time. If you are going to solo queue with these guys, what you want to do is use the ballista shot, because you're not landing any boulders, mate. Those fucking things are going to be flung just miles away from where you tried to shoot. At that stage, you may as well use the ballista bolts. I guess that's why they call these units Elite Ballistas, not Elite Catapults. It's because they can't fucking hit a boulder if their life depended on it. Saying that, I think it's a good thing. I don't think the premium units should be better than the proper units. And this is one of the few that is left that isn't better. It's fucking horrid. It's fun to play though. It's a challenge. And you get bonus XP. I wish you got more bonus XP, but you get a bit of a bonus. 50% more. It's not bad. Badger and I played so many games trying to see if we could get these things to work. But Jagovia just kept popping, and that was the most annoying thing in the world. We even got the catapults on top of the hill with the 2 towers for spotting, and it turns out that's the worst place for catapults. They can't hit anything from there. That map in general is a catapult's worst nightmares, and it's even worse when you do not have Caesar. So eventually it came down to this combo. He had to stay around me with Caesar infantry buffing me the whole fucking game. And even though that was the case, it just ended up an artillery war here. I'm just trying to kill their catapults. And we just spend most of this game blowing each other's catapults up. Just blowing each other left, right and center. 24/7 for the whole fucking game. So while that happens, let's talk about the changes that are coming to the game. We've got some big ones. One of them being the ability to swap your tier 10 unit abilities over. I don't have much to say on this one because I'm never going to play tier 10. Every time I do try to get into a game, they just don't pop. I've been waiting 15 minutes, nothing happens, I go back down to tier 8. And I do this thing every fucking day. Every day. Oh yeah, let's see if tier 10's popping. 15 minutes in queue, nothing's happening, back down. And that's that's the rotation I have going. Just never get a game. So it doesn't matter at all. They can change their abilities as much as they want. I still can't fucking get into a game in the first place. So why does it matter? Maybe if there was some indication on how many people were playing that tier at any given time, you would know if it's time to queue up or not. At the moment, you just go to tier 8 because that shit pops instantly. Well, tier 9 and tier 10, you can wait around all day and nothing happens. I think that's one of the reasons why tier 9 games and tier 10 games don't pop compared to tier 8. It's because everyone just stays at tier 8 knowing that they're going to get a game very quickly, and there's no incentive to play tier 9. There's no bonus of it. It's if anything, it's worse. If you play tier 8, you're going to be the top tier no matter what. If you play tier 9, you're going to be the lowest tier no matter what. So there's no real bonus of leveling up to tier 9. And with the upcoming changes, tier 9's looking even worse. With that said, let's talk about the commander changes. Starting with Caesar, whose Veni is getting 10% less melee attack bonus and 10% less melee defense bonus. And Vichy is getting a slight increase to its cooldown. These are some minor nerfs. I don't think it will affect Caesar that much at all. People would still play him as much as they always have. He's still a good commander. Next up we have Germanicus, who's getting quite a big fucking nerf. His charge impact is getting reduced by 20%. Or should I say the bonuses to his charge impact are getting reduced by 20%. Which means he still will be winning the charges, he just won't be annihilating everything he does hit with that charge. So I'm 50-50 on that change. I like the fact that Germanicus could do heaps of damage on his charge. It was a way to compete with pikes and spears if you did get one of those charges off on the pikes and spears in the back. It was your way of making it an even battle. Or if you had a Caesar silence them, it was your way of annihilating those units. At the same time, it did run over everything the barbarians have in a matter of seconds, so yeah, 50-50 on that one. The next change is a nerfing Vengeance by a whopping 25%, which I think will make Hannibal a bit more viable. Vengeance won't win out as often as it does at the moment. But damn, there's some big fucking nerfs, I've got to say. Like, he relies on the charge, he relies on that Vengeance. And now he's going to be doing less damage to elephants. Like, the guy has a lot of counters. Pikes, spears, fucking catapults, scorpions, like, goddamn. The amount of counters they have is pretty big. Elephants can counter them as well, javelins. They can't catch any ranged units in general. They really do need to be good in melee combat. That's all they've got going for them. So we'll see how this pans out. It's just, yeah, it's just a big old nerf for Germanicus, but oh well, I don't like the cunt anyway. The next commander on the list is Leonidas, who avoided the chopping block. He's actually getting buffed, and that's hold the line at tier 10, so it doesn't really matter. He's getting 10% more melee defense, who gives a shit? It's at tier 10. The big change is Fight in the Shade, which you can now use in melee combat effectively. They're removing the negative 60% melee defense, so you're not going to be useless when you do have it up in melee combat. Now you have to remember you cannot use Phalanx and Fight in the Shade at the same time, which would be a massive buff. That would be, yeah, that would be huge, but it does open up some tactical options. Do you want to be in that Phalanx, or do you want to be blocking the missiles that are getting fired into that melee combat? Also, if the ranged units do get behind you, they're going to be doing just as much damage as they always have. Saying that, you can use Phalanx to reposition where you're fighting from, and then put the ray shields back on, or should I say, Fight in the Shade, so you're blocking the missiles again. It just makes Leonidas a bit more flexible, and overall I think it's a good change. Next up is Milli Vanilli, but most of the changes are at tier 9, so it doesn't really matter, for me at least. So let's move on to the next commander. And that is Scipio, who is getting a change to his Oath of Perseverance. It won't slow you by 80% now, it will only slow you by 40%. Which is a good thing because, damn, that 80% means once you have popped that oath, you're stuck in combat if the enemy wants you to be stuck in combat. Also, they can disengage from you pretty damn easy. Now that it's only 40%, you can possibly charge out of combat situations you don't want to be in and get out of oath. Also, it makes it harder for the enemy to disengage with you once you do pop that oath ability. And now if the ranged units do try to move behind you to annihilate your cavalry, you can charge out of that combat situation you're in, possibly killing those ranged units. It's just a good buff for Scipio. Next up is Sulla, who's getting a nerf to his whip. It's going down from 80% melee attack to 68% melee attack. And his movement speed is going from 30% movement speed down to 23%. That's a pretty damn big nerf. It's going to be a lot harder to put the pressure on the ranged units that you're trying to chase down. As well as Prescription getting nerfed from 60%, negative 60% melee attack for the enemy to negative 52% melee attack for the enemy. Now, I think the reason they're doing these nerfs is because the tier 10 ones can have raised shields, and solo with raised shields is pretty bullshit. That's going to be very strong. But at the same time, that's only tier 10, so he just got fucking nerfed. The infantry's worse than it was before. The javelins will be alright, they're a bit slower, but actually they probably can't chase down barb archers anymore. So that's kind of fucked as well. It's just big fuck you to solo, basically. Because of the changes they're going to do at tier 10, which no one plays. Also, apparently the high tier solo with the cav is very good. But I wouldn't fucking know, because I can't even get into those games. It's all nerfs because of tier 9 and 10. And yeah, so, yeah, that's just fucking useless. So that's one I am salty on, I don't get it. Balancing this game around tier 9 and 10, where about, what, 2% of the population of the game plays. And I think 2% is a overestimate. It's probably less than that, it's probably 1%. So that's pretty annoying, because, yeah, it just makes solo at the lower tiers even weaker, and he wasn't that impressive. Now let's move on to Versi, who's getting plus 15% melee defense on Iron Discipline and plus 10 missile block. They're decent changes overall. I thought the infantry is a bit weak on Vercingetorix, so this might help them out a bit. Especially the missile block, they just get blown up by ranged units 24/7. This might help out and make the barbed swords a bit more viable, because you get the shield block or missile block from the shields, and then you get plus 10 on top of that when you have Iron Discipline up, which you can pop outside of combat. So yeah, if you're running into a situation and the archers start peppering you down, you can pop that Iron Discipline just to give yourself that slight buff of 10 missile block. It's, you know, it's decent. It's not nerf. So there's that. On the other hand, Defiance is going to be a bit weaker. The duration is going to be shorter. That's a bit annoying. So it's a trade-off. You get plus 15% melee defense on your Iron Discipline, but Defiance does not last as long. Next up is Kanani, who's basically getting a nerf to her pikes. The turn speed from Rapid Advance is getting reduced by 10%. On top of that, all the boots for the pikes are having the turn speed removed from them. I'm not sure if this is for the spears as well. It might be a bit of an indirect nerf, but basically Kanani pikes are going to be turning slower. Meanwhile, Leonidas and melee pikes are going to be turning a bit faster, because the pike turn speed in general is going to be going from negative 95% speed to negative 90%. With that said, let's move on to the range units, archers, slingers, and javelins. They're getting nerfed from between 5% to 20% because of a bug that was in the game. Now that that bug is getting fixed up, javelins are going to get weaker. They're probably going to lose about 20% damage. The archers and slingers will lose some damage as well, depending on which ones you pick. They're going to lose between 5 and 20% damage. It sounds like mostly it's going to affect the barbarian archers. And that's all I've got time for. It's a mixed bag. Some things are good, some things are bad. We'll just have to see how it works out. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and thumbs up and all that shit, and I'll see you next time.
Oh yes.